Hello, welcome back to the David Watson podcast. And I just spoke to Kevin, who does books and marketing, gave me some wonderful advice about, for people who watch this on YouTube will know that I get a reflection in my glasses, and Kevin just said, tilt them, and it works. And I'm impressed with that. And I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I enjoyed talking to him. Hello, welcome to the David Watson podcast. Thank you for your patience. We are now finally sitting down and having a chat. Apart from voting, how else are you today?
I'm doing great, David. Just loving life over here. I've been retired for a while and just enjoying my everyday, writing books and taking care of my dog Pal and my wife of almost 50 years. So I'm just loving life.
Oh, it's good. It's good. And just to bring people up to speed with the energy so far, we've had a good rant about globalist companies, the World Economic Forum, and just enough of the little guy getting shit on all the time. And accountants
Yes.
need to bugger off out of business and just let the manufacturers and the guys on the floor, the guys and the women on the floor just do their jobs and leave us all alone. So, which is, it's always good to get that off our chest before we start. You know what I mean? Before we get into the books, one of the things I was interested in, because obviously one of the books, there's a timeline for your life. Where was growing up for you?
There's a little town in New York called Ilion. And if you've ever shot a Remington rifle, that's the birthplace of the Remington rifle. But there's a ton of history in Ilion. Remington made a lot of things besides rifles. They did farm implements. They provided electricity to a lot of businesses, one of the first to do that in the area. Just did a tremendous a lot for the people of Ilion. And Ilion was a small town, but it had everything you needed. And you were always safe. You could walk the streets without any issues. Christmas time, the decorations and all the storefronts and across the street, just beautiful. So that was my hometown up until the age of 13. Then my dad got transferred out with his job out to Minnesota. And that's where I spent my next 5 years going to high school out there. And I met my wife I was a senior, she was a junior. And a year later, we got married. Like I was mentioning, next year is my 50th wedding anniversary. So when you know,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
Uh,
definitely, definitely. And was there a big contrast from like?
Pardon?
Was there a big contrast from um, leaving that kind of big New York area and going to Minnesota?
There was in the standpoint of the size of the community. My hometown was maybe 10,000 people at its peak. My high school class, maybe 150, 160 kids in the graduating class. Then I go out to the town of Rosemount, Minnesota, which is just south of Minneapolis. And the class size was 380 students. So that was a bit of a shock for me starting ninth grade. Here I am a teenager, just, all the changes in the body and all of what that means. And then going to a new school, new kids, blah, blah, blah. But I will tell you, David, my lifelong friend, and I mean, I count or consider him a brother from another mother. I met him in ninth grade. The first day I was riding the bus to school, I sat next to him and we struck up a conversation and we have been best buds ever since. So, I mean, it does have its advantages of moving as much as it was, I will be honest to say, it was a bit scary at times too.
Mm. And did you stay in Minnesota after high school?
No. What happened is my wife's mother's job got transferred to Illinois, so she moved her senior year to Illinois. I started in to become an electrician in Minnesota. About a couple months into that, I was missing her way too much, so I said, "That's it. I quit school then, packed up all my belongings, and I moved to Illinois. And then there we got married. And since that, moved back to New York State. And I went back to college and finished my degree. And then my wife went back to college and finished her degree. And then that took us to Rochester, where I started my career with the Eastman Kodak Company.
Okay. So yeah, that's
So a
no
lot of
that
moving.
yeah no, but like you say, there's a lot of life stories and a lot of life lessons in that at the beginning,
Yes.
and those kind of structures that you build kind of become foundations you didn't realize you were laying.
Oh, absolutely. And later on, my grandkids, I have six of them, they were asking me, Grandpa, can you tell us stories of when you were a kid? What was it like? What did you do? And so I was telling them all these stories and not sure if they remember them or not. I started to write them down. Pretty soon, I had a whole bunch of stories, and I decided that would go into my first two books, which I describe as memoir history.
Yeah,
And I put all my stories in there, and it's kind of David, me leaving now a bit of a legacy for the
yeah,
kids.
yeah,
Uh, so I felt real good about that. But then that begat my journey into writing, and as such, my third book came along, and now my fourth book is over with the editor. So I didn't even know I was going to be an author, and it just turned out that way.
so did you start writing after you retired then?
Yes. Yeah, I started writing for the kids at age of 62, and then at 65, I published the first book. So yeah, prior to that, the only real writing I did was for the companies I worked for. The second company, Xerox, I wrote a number of white papers, and they would take and audit them and send it through both corporate management as well as marketing. Those were the editors, and then we wound up publishing those.
Yeah, it's hard to understand or to help people understand, isn't it? Is Xerox back in the day was, but basically, although the machine is called a photocopier, it was referred to as
Yes.
Xerox. I mean, that they
Yes.
were in every office, and
Yes.
it's hard for people to understand today because some people don't even have them in the office.
I know it's now like a centralized printer that you connect to.
Yeah,
And, now you have to get up away from your desk and go walk to the printer. But that one centralized printer probably replaced a good 10 to 12 what they called light lens copiers,
mm,
where you actually had to, put your thing you were going to copy on the platen and press the
yeah.
button to copy it. Whereas now you just send it electronically over to the printer and boom, 2 seconds later you walk over and grab it.
No one will ever, unless you were in that era, no one will ever understand what it was like trying to replace that cartridge and the
Yeah.
black dust. That just, if you've never done it, I could never describe how you're not getting that off your clothes, and
No, no,
and
no.
it gets
And that
everywhere.
that was their to Xerox, and I'll just put it this way. Toner was the Xerox as film was the Kodak.
Yeah,
And when both of those things went digital, that's when the toner and the film became less important and the machine became more important.
yeah. I mean,
So,
and it's hard again because, like you say, that there's generations now that have no idea what a Kodak was or is.
yes,
And
yes,
not only do they not know what it is, they don't know what we have today because of Kodak. The innovations
yes,
around cameras and films and Kodak's involvement in that, and just what a global company they were.
yes,
And
yes.
not just like the size they were, but how quickly they went out of business.
Yeah, they really went downhill fast. And here's the funny thing. At one point, they were the number one global
Yeah.
brand recognized in the world.
Yeah.
And they had 110,000 roughly right people worldwide working for them. and now it's about 7,000 people worldwide for what became Kodak Alaris. And it's a much, much smaller company. And there's times that it's been teetering itself on the brink of going out.
But this is it. If you were to look at Kodak in terms of industrial history, it was
Hmm.
once a global empire. It
Yes,
ruled the world, and now, if you're lucky, it's the size of a small town in comparison to its influence. It's like,
absolutely.
you
You
know,
you got it.
yeah.
That's it.
And you could say Xerox is still around. It's still in offices, big offices and stuff like that. But it was, you couldn't even, on one hand, and this, it's not even an exaggeration, if you didn't have a Xerox in your office, people would question what sort of company or business you were. And,
Yes.
you know, because yeah, it was it was as essential as a file fax, or a fax machine, but it was
Yes.
around,
Oh,
long before fax machines. And you can't explain to a kid that these machines would photocopy something for you, and if you needed 20 of them, it would fold them up and staple it for you. And that was a big
yeah.
deal. It was a big deal. And the engineers that used to come round to service them, and all of that, there was this whole thing. It was more than just a machine. There was the toner, the service guys, and everybody had them on lease. It was a finance organization. It was, and now it's nobody even really knows what Xerox
Yeah.
is.
And now it's competing against a lot of others. When Xerox first started out, they wanted to create an image because they viewed their photocopies as creating images.
Yes.
And so to create that image, what they would do with their salespeople is all of them were flown first class. No matter where they were going, you were first class, or if the plane didn't have that, business class. Um, Now they're got the territories so split up that they don't want people traveling. And another thing they used to do in the beginning for the longest time is they would send their engineers and their salespeople to training in a facility in Virginia. And at that facility, you were there for a couple of months, but it had everything. It had a cafeteria, so all the meals were provided. It had a bar area, it had pool tables, but you were sleeping kind of, uh, I don't want to call it dorm style,
No.
although they did. You had your own little room, and that's what it was, a little room. Had a bed, a TV, a closet, and a shower. That's it. And very compact, but they didn't want you spending time in your room. They wanted you out mingling, learning,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But when the salespeople and the engineers came out of that, they were schooled and they hit the ground and they sold. And I traveled with a number of sales folks at the time that were, making in the range of a $500,000 a year. Uh, that's quite a bit of money for a
Yeah.
salesperson.
Yeah. It's a lot of money.
But yeah. And I'm sitting back saying, well, I'm nowhere near that. I'm just the technician, if you will, that knows the applications. So, because I was software oriented. Um, and so my pay was nowhere near that kind of realm. But it was interesting to see these guys and how they spoke with the customers, and I was always introduced as this is the guy that's going to keep me honest when I start telling you what these machines can do and what our
Yeah.
applications can do. He knows it. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of travel, but to see, David, what that company has become,
I know. I know.
I
It's the collapse of an empire for Kodak and for
yes,
Xerox. It's the collapse of an empire, and
yes, yes,
um, Kodak was rapid. It happened all not quite overnight, but close enough to it. With, like you said, once digital cameras hit the high streets, and then mobile, that wiped out Kodak to some degree, and then kind of mobile phones did the rest. Um,
yes,
and whereas Xerox still exists and it still has a function, but like you say, its printers started taking over that industry, and where you can
Yep.
photocopy on a printer.
Yes. Yes.
And you can put a printer on anybody's desk, whereas a big Xerox machine had its place in the office.
Yep.
And
I mean, just look at our offices. I've got a printer just sitting
yeah,
maybe 5 feet from me. Yeah.
but that's the thing, isn't it? Because nobody worked from home back then. Because, well,
Right.
how would you get stuff done? And so there's the Xerox machine. Well, so it depends on how large your company is. Some Xerox machines had their own room, and
Yes.
so these were massive machines.
Yep.
And yeah, it's crazy when you look at how things evolved. And the thing that fascinates me about both of those organizations is, and it's almost a life lesson, because they were so dominant globally, not just nationally, globally. They were right up there with car companies, but had more dominance, you could argue, had more dominance in their space than car companies. I'm trying to think of something that is almost comparable to those two organizations. And in comparison, when you look at their reach, their influence, and the stranglehold they had, no, and I don't mean that negatively, like, they were good organizations, but they
Yeah.
just disappeared. This just
Yes.
like, and to the point that if you're of a certain age, you've no idea what you and I are talking about with such passion.
It is so interesting too that when I looked into the history of Xerox and saw all that they had, we wouldn't have the mouse today
Yeah,
if it wasn't for Xerox.
yeah,
Xerox at one point sold computers. A lot of people don't know that. Even full screen, where you can do different things on the screen. Trying to think of the terminology for it, but just the icons and things like that. That was all Xerox technology.
yeah,
And to see it today, the company, it's just a shell of what it could have been.
yeah,
But they didn't know how to get out of the way of what we used to call the Xerox crack, and that's the toner, because they made a boatload of money on the toner.
yeah,
And it's kind of like they describe it as the old razor blade commercial, almost give away the razor blade, the razor itself, but you charge a gazillion dollars for the blades.
yeah,
And that's the way Xerox was. Their copiers were not that expensive, but the toners to replace it, I mean, you were spending a lot of
yeah,
money on those toners. And it really didn't cost Xerox a lot of money for it. And that's where they made the majority of their cash.
yeah.
So,
It is like you say. It was the pricing model, the way they made their money, that stopped the
yes.
innovation. That stopped that adaptation, because they could have easily, with the way they had a marketplace, said, "Hey, we've now got these smaller machines that are more practical for a smaller user, or if you all want one on a desk, it's we can sell them to you at a tenth of the price. Don't need a service guy, and we can
Yep.
post you the toner. It's
Yeah. Yeah. It's so, oh man. I don't like it when I see companies that, as one gentleman used to describe it, they latch on to their cash cow
yeah,
and they never look beyond it. Well, the cash cow, like any cow, if you think about that as the analogy, that has a lifespan.
yeah,
And you've got to look for what comes next and always be looking for what comes next. Otherwise, your company will not exist.
yeah. And that's an interesting thing with Xerox, because the for a long time computers were linked to printers, and
Yeah.
they never said, well, hey, maybe we should actually supply a printer which is a scaled down version of a Xerox machine, because they were perfectly placed, unlike Kodak, where Kodak made a film that you put in a
Hmm.
camera. They got overtaken because of the software. The software came along and it's like, oh, hang on, our product isn't compatible with the software because you just we you don't use our product. Whereas
Right.
a Xerox machine is a printer.
Hmm.
And it's just like we already own the domination of printers. They're just called Xerox machines or photocopiers. And they didn't scale it down to put it on a desk that you could plug into your computer and just print off what you want. And yeah, and basically, I mean, in my office at work today, what I have is a scaled down Xerox that prints and photocopies.
Hmm. And Xerox probably does not manufacture that. They've outsourced a lot of that to be manufactured to their specifications. And then, it's like a lot of companies, they just slap their name on it and
Yeah,
sell it as a Xerox
yeah.
machine.
But and it is a shame because, like I said, just because of their dominance. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. But again, it's when I was saying to you about what was your childhood, what it was like growing up. It's how would you explain how would you explain today's smartphone to your parents?
Yeah. And my mom lived to be 92.
Yeah,
And so she just had a regular flip phone because she didn't, I mean, to her, this technology was foreign.
yeah,
And it's just like right now, there's things in my background is computer science, but there's things I look at now and say, I have to talk to my kids. How the heck do we do this? How do we do
mm,
that? Because that's foreign to me. And when we were younger, I can remember after my wife and I were married, we got our first microwave.
yeah.
The kids today, that's nothing to them.
No,
I mean, since the time that they were born, and my grandkids all know cell phones. Now, they don't have them until they turn 16
yeah,
because that's what their parents decided. You're not getting it until you're 16. And so, but they are starting to turn 16, 17, 18, and starting to
yeah.
get them. So,
And that's what I mean.
I'm
How would you explain to your 16-year-old grandchild not only what Kodak was, but how it dominated, what Xerox was, and the influence it had in the office because it would be centre place next to the coffee machine, and they'd
yep,
be like, "But people work from home now." Yeah, but we never used
yeah,
to do that. We used to go to the building, and
yes. That's entirely foreign to them. And that's, David, why I'm glad that I've written my first couple of books,
mm,
because that will leave them some of this, to have an
yeah.
understanding of what it was like back then.
One of the things that just popped into my head about arriving at work is how would you explain to kids today with Q to use this thing?
The what? I didn't catch that.
With Q to use this a Xerox machine. You know what I mean? You'd get to the office and you'd be, there'd be a queue forming because everyone's trying to get their
Yes.
photocopying done. And,
Yes.
how would you, and the funny thing is, it didn't matter what position you were in the company, you couldn't pull rank. The queue is the queue
Yeah.
and you'll wait your turn the
Yeah.
same as everyone else. As a courtesy,
Yeah.
you might have that courtesy. If I've got to do 100 copies and you've got to do 3, you can jump in front. Uh,
Right, right. And the only person that outranked us was the senior VP. If the senior VP needed it for a meeting right away,
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
go.
yeah, absolutely.
But other than that, you get the back of the line.
Yeah, it was a great leveler, and it was a great place
Yes.
to meet people and gossip and everything else. Which, yeah, so that does kind of neatly lead us to the books. You have 3 in print, and 1 is with the editors.
Correct.
Yeah,
And there's 3 different genres in there. Uh, and, from a marketing perspective or a branding perspective, other authors tend to frown on that of having multiple genres. It just makes it harder to do. But I'm looking to have fun when I write,
yeah,
and I want to write what I want to write. So the first 2 books were the memoir history books. And then the third book is what I call spiritual. And then the fourth book now, I've been on a number of webinars and live YouTube events with a lot of other authors, a lot of newbie authors, and they're very scared of the marketing side
Mm.
of their books. And when they said, "Well, geez, can you help me? I'm not getting book sales." You ask them, "What have you done?" And they'll say, "Well, I put it out on Amazon."
Yeah.
Okay, what else have you done? And it's like blank stares. So my fourth book now is geared towards helping the new author. In fact, I call it Book Marketing on a Budget, Simple Steps for New Authors. And so it's all about the tips and techniques that I've used and developed. And David, I've had sales every month since the first book debuted in April of 23 without fail. I haven't missed a month of sales yet, and I've spent $0 on any Amazon or LinkedIn or Facebook ads. And I've done it by using these techniques. Now, I'm not talking I sold thousands and thousands of books, but I've sold several hundred books. And when I couple that with the book signing events that I've done and things like that, and the libraries where the books have been checked out many, many times. And I get reports on that. Had everybody bought one that checked it out and that kind of thing, you add it all together, I'm definitely pushing over 1,000 books,
Yeah.
but I've spent nothing on doing it. And so to me, when I hear new authors say, "Well, I put it out 3 months ago and I've only made two sales." Well, what are you doing? And can I help you with these, what I call simple steps? And the whole book kind of theme is built on a stair step going up. First, you start at the foundation, and these are the things you got to do. Very simple, won't cost you a cent. And then we're going to take a step up. And now these are some things here you can do. And I give them actual examples. Here's the exact email that I sent over to, maybe it's this library, or maybe
Yeah.
it's like my alma mater. With my college, there's an alumni section. So I got in touch with the person who manages that, and I said, "Look, I graduated in 81, computer science. Here's what I'm doing now since my career. I'm an author. I've got these books published. If you'd like to know more, I'd love to sit down and talk with you." David, that one little email led to 3 articles in their
Yeah.
alumni newsletter over the last few years. And it didn't cost me a cent.
It's
But I noticed the sales went up. So it's interesting to hear that they want to make sales to new authors, but they don't know how. So that's where I've written this book. I kept it all black and white to keep the costs down. I took out all the flowery words and just given them the meat. This is how
yeah.
I've done it. This is how you can do it.
I think
So
people,
that's the fourth book.
I think people underestimate because they're all kind of trying to be J.K. Rowling and sell billions of
Yes.
books and get a film franchise. It's just like, look, things have changed. When I wrote my first book, I don't remember when. It was over a decade ago. Amazon wasn't what it is today,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
back then I can't even remember what the name of the book is in the UK, but you'd buy it every year. It's like an author's guide, and it basically had a list of
Okay.
all the publishers and all the editors and all of the agents, and you basically were expected to go through that and write to everybody. And I used to get the writers' news every month, or writers' monthly, or whatever it was, and that would have all the all the articles and everything. And that was kind of how you learn to sort of traverse this space. And then the internet really started taking off, and social media started taking off. And you then learn, well, actually, I can just upload this to Amazon. I could buy adverts. But what I learned along the way, and I learned this through podcasting because it's the same thing, is you have to just reach out to people, and
Yes.
you just have
Yes.
to ask questions, and you better get used to people not even bothering to reply. and people saying no, right? And they'll say
Yes.
no in a brutal fashion, like, well, respectfully, you're not big enough. But then you get little gems, and one of the things, and again, it's like lower your expectations while you're building, because I remember I was lucky enough I was at this like civic event in Salisbury near where I'm from. It's like the protection of old buildings and stuff like that, and the history of Salisbury. And there was I think it's the Bishop Ramsby, or Bishop Rumsby, the Bishop of Ramsbury, or it's the other way around, the Bishop of Ramsby, Bishop Rumsby or something. And I got it wrong when I was talking to him, even though before we started recording, I'd asked him, and he told me, right, this is how you say it. And then when I went to say it, I got it the wrong way around, right? Which he found, luckily for me, found amusing. But after it was him and I had finished, I put it all out there and I sent it to him and stuff. I was thinking, I wonder who else might be interested in this. And there's a little organisation within the Church of England, called the Church Times. So I sent them an email and just said, hey, I spoke to the bishop. And this is his diocese. This is what we discussed. Would you be interested in sharing it with your members, readers, listeners? I know you've got a website. And they came back, well, how much and what do you want from us? And I just said, nothing. You don't even have to tag me. Just genuinely, I really enjoyed the conversation. We were talking about the use of churches and stuff like that. And if you're interested, just clip it. You know, take a piece of it if you want, share it if you want. It's just, honestly, it's completely free of charge. I don't want anything from you. Just thought it might be. So anyway, the editor then listened to it and come back to me and said, do you know what, this is really good. This is perfect for what we do. Yeah. And they made it their like article or website or podcast of the week. Do you know what I mean? And all I said is, I don't want anything from it. I just think your audience might be interested because I spoke to you your bishop. And it's not by any stretch of the imagination my biggest thing, but it's dialogue with somebody else, because you might have something. And your local magazine, your local newspaper, your local church magazine, there will be people there who would be interested in publishing a short story about you and your book and why you wrote it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Contact them. Ask them.
Absolutely. In that marketing book, I put kind of a quote peppered throughout, the same one. The answer's always no if you don't ask.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've always had this rule, like with my podcast. I'm very lucky now. But I had like 3 years where I'd send, 20 to 30 to 50 emails a week to people, or message them directly on Instagram, right? Not get replies. Occasionally get people. And at one point, I didn't do a podcast for, I feel like about 3 months. And then I have no idea where it came from. I do remember I kind of had a private conversation with myself and God, for want of a better term, and sort of said, look, I'm going to keep doing this till Christmas, but if you want me to keep doing, if I'm supposed to be doing this podcast, somebody needs to help me out here. And out of the blue, I just got an email from a publicist in New York. Said, would you be interested in talking to this author? It's their first time book. And now I'm fairly confident I was way down the list of podcasts they wanted to be on. Right, but you've never printed a book before, and nobody knows who you are, so you're not on anyone's list of people they want to talk to.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. When can we do this? And and trying not to sound too needy, but yes, I'm a professional podcaster, and I'd love to talk to your person. And then within about 4 weeks, my name must have gone around some circle, because I had all these different publicists emailing me saying, would you talk to this author? And I just said yes to everybody. And I went from no guests, and then it kicked off in September. And by the end of October, I was booked up until January. And that was 2 years ago. Yeah. From that, the podcast website where I found you contacted me and said, could we list your podcast? Yep, yes, you can. And now I'm in, and I have as many guests as I could want. It doesn't mean that I'm interviewing. Funny enough, I've interviewed big people with 1 million followers. It didn't get me any more.
Hmm.
It didn't get me any more than anyone else. It's not
No,
you've and
not
I
surprised.
yeah I've had a few people on who have big followers, big followings. One of them didn't even share the fact that he'd been on done my podcast. Um, so that didn't help. But it turns out just because they're well known doesn't mean actually anyone's interested in them.
Yeah, that is correct. And when I'm talking to other authors, you've mentioned something, David. You said yes, yes, yes,
Yes, yeah,
yes. And that's exactly what I tell them. Do not say no because you never know where that yes is going to take you.
look,
And I'll tell you, I've been on over 40 podcasts now. I've been in South Africa, England, Canada, the US, and Australia. And I mean, I've sold books there also, but because I keep saying yes
yeah,
and I keep reaching out and asking, this is what I do. Would you like to have me on as a guest?
yeah.
And yeah, I've gotten some no's, but it's surprising how many yeses that I get. And some of them say, yes, I want to have you on, but it might be 3 months from now. Okay, let's book it.
Well,
You know?
you did that with me because I think you and I started talking
Yes,
in August, and so
yes.
this is. I'm going to give everyone a good example. I contacted you. I think it was in August or something like that,
Hmm.
and I think we were originally. It was either we were originally booked or I sent you the wrong dates, and I had to apologise because I wasn't well and said, look, I've had a really bad
Yes.
head cold, and I think I had to cancel the podcast. And I think I reached out to you and said, look, I'm sorry, I can't do the podcast. I'm just not in a good place this
Hmm.
week physically. I was really like bunged up and you were just like, not a problem. I've had the same. I know what it's like. No problem. Can we rebook? And I'm like, yeah, we can. I'm really delighted to. By the way, it's going to be a few months.
Yeah.
But you were just like, that's fine, no problem.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right. Then we had a bit of a mix up today with timings,
Yep.
and I emailed you. You then emailed me back, and I was just like, give me 2 minutes. I'll switch everything back on, and we'll just roll with it. And that's
Yeah.
just yes. The answer is yes.
Exactly. Exactly. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people. Well, I couldn't do it that day because of move it. Move whatever you had. Unless it's something dire,
Yeah,
somebody's in the hospital or dying or
yeah,
something, move it and just do it because you don't know where that's going to take you. Um, I lived by a schedule for 40 plus years in corporate America, and it's just something I've carried over. And again, when the mix-up happened today, I apologize
yeah,
to you for that because I had it on my calendar at a different time.
yeah.
And I don't like missing things like this. I'm the type of person I'd rather be 5 minutes early than 5 minutes late.
Yep.
You know, it's just
And
courtesy to
but
do that.
and there was that learning again, wasn't it? Where I said to you, no, this is a problem at my end where the merger of two organisations keeps sending people the UK time and not the time that I put in, and and it's useful because it helps me understand that hasn't been ironed out yet. Because
Yep,
uh,
yep.
and but again, it comes from this like I think sometimes the problem is we fear the rejection,
Oh, we do.
right?
We do.
And
Yep.
it could be very easy for me to sit here and say, well, he's not bloody turned up and feel rejected. Not an email saying, is everything all right? You haven't joined. And then you come back and say, hey, I've got the wrong time. Can you do now? Like, yep, we'll start. And it's that yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes,
Yes.
we'll make it happen. Yes, I can do that. It's just
Yep.
it's not personal. I don't know what you're doing today. You don't know what I'm doing today. The mix up started because I had to cancel the original appointment. The mix up continued because of the software that I use. But
Yeah.
both people just went, yeah, we can get it done. That's all.
Exactly. Exactly. And when I was in business, corporate America, I kind of lived by the 80-20 rule, which
Yeah, no.
got people a little bit upset because they wanted 100% perfect. I said, you're never going to get it 100% perfect. Somebody will find fault with it. Let's get it out there and get it used and learn those things so we can get it corrected quickly. And that's the way that I lived, and I'll tell you, it served me well. But there were people that would sit back, no, it's not good enough. No, it's not good enough. No, it's not good enough, before they ever put anything out. And then they begin to wonder why people aren't coming to them with new projects.
Mm.
And it's almost like by doing that, you're saying, no, I'm not going to do this until it's 100% by me. Okay, fine, but think of the other person. What are they're waiting for something? And if you can deliver that, it's like saying, yes, I'll do it, and yes, I'll get it to you quickly enough where you can use it and benefit from it.
Yeah. I,
So it's just kind of nature to me.
it is. There's a funny thing that people don't understand, that if you put something out there and your customer comes back and says, "Did you know that there's a flaw in this? This is faulty. It's not what it is." And you say, "No, I didn't. Let me look into that." And then you contact them two
Hmm.
weeks later and say, "Thank you, because we've now made this amendment based on your experience." That customer
Yes.
will never leave your side.
Exactly. Exactly. And a lot of times when we did that, we'd even give them a little something extra. Thank you for
Yeah.
pointing this out. Because of that, we're going to do XYZ, whatever that was. And it just like you said, it cemented that customer for life. If you ever find anything else, here's my phone number. You just call me directly and we'll take care of it.
And people
I,
used to do that. It's just like if you pointed
yeah,
something out, when the next upgrade come through, they'd say, we've sent you a courtesy upgrade." Do you know what I mean?
exactly.
Whereas
Exactly.
now you can point out a flaw, and unless it gets momentum on social media and some backing, they won't do anything about it. And just like, no,
No.
that we were always going to get back to this globalist rant, weren't we? But we're not. We're gonna shift back to books and the marketing principles,
Yes.
because actually this does kind of lie in with where we were talking about before. Is if you have a local church magazine, a local newspaper, whatever, right? It's hard for you when you're sitting at home with a book that you sometimes feel embarrassed about trying to put out there, even though you want to put it out there, but you have no experience of the fear about criticism, reception,
Yeah.
because and you suddenly you get scared and you shrink. and
Yes.
it's interesting. I was doing a video example for a friend of mine on Monday, and I was trying to help him with his marketing, and I was giving him some suggestions, and then I said, "Look, this is how you do it," and I just held up my phone and gave a 30-second sort of speech, literally about what we were talking about, and the fear of talking, and the fear of moving forward, and the fear of reaching out. And he just went like, "F in hell! Like, how do you do that?" And I was just like, 5 years of practice, over 2,500 videos. When I first started out, I used to use a notepad, and you'd see me looking at a notepad, looking at the camera,
Yep. Yep.
trying to talk. And then when I about 6 weeks of always writing a script, I realised if I kept writing a script, I had a good idea of what I was going to say, and I could normally do it in one take. 9 times, say 8 times out of 10, I'd get first takes, and then there'd be a couple of videos I'd get wrong and have to redo it. Another 6 weeks of that, I was able to just look at the idea and just talk it. There, we're good. And
Yes.
I'd get away with that
Yes.
7 or 8 times out of 10. Now, I'm at a point where, like yourself, I can just turn on Zoom and start talking to a person I've never met before, like we're neighbours. But
Absolutely.
I was not.
Absolutely.
Once upon a time, I was a fumbling idiot who looked like he'd drunk too much, as well as didn't know too much. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I evolved, but it's just repetition and hours and
Yeah.
learning, like just learning. You're scared because you're worried about people you don't know judging you,
Yes. Yes.
and you will get
And
judged. You will, but
you will. And that's just the way it is. Now, you were talking about the practice part, and you've learned from a lot of that. in this latest book, put a couple chapters on podcasting because of things that I've learned. For example, when this gets played back, it'll look like I'm talking directly to you because I'm looking directly into the camera. I'm not going to take my eyes off from that unless, I'm
Yeah,
reaching for a cup of coffee or water or whatever. But that's something that I had to learn
yeah,
because the first couple of podcasts I looked at, oh, I'm looking down, I'm looking away. Well, that's because I was looking just like this. I'm looking at you right now
yeah.
in my screen instead of looking right here into the camera. So I had to learn that. So I give that as tips in there.
And
The other thing is, you need to be able to talk succinctly about the topic, have that, but you also have to be able to hear the conversation and go where the conversation is going to take you. As you said, talking like friends, or as I've said in the book, it's like you're sitting around a campfire in the backyard with your best bud and you're just sitting and chatting. And you've got to be that comfortable. And I'll tell you, David, I was not this comfortable when I first started in corporate America. But you learn and you grow and you understand that unless you want this over here to happen, you've got to take these steps to make it happen. And one of them, I had to learn to get comfortable with public speaking.
yeah,
And still, if I go on stage, yeah, there's the butterflies in the stomach, but you have to learn to push through that and deliver your message. And that's what the people have shown up for. And that's showing respect to the people that you're there, they're there for you, you're going to give them that information. So I write about this in the book along with other tips. Like you've got glasses, and like I can see some reflection in the
yeah.
glasses. Well, I too have glasses, but I take them off. Or another tip I give to people, when you put your glasses on, you're going to see the glare.
Yeah.
Tip them up a little bit. Now I got a hat on, so I don't, but tip them up a little bit. I can still see, but the glare goes away.
So that's
And
that's interesting because I have struggled. So when I first started doing the podcast, I didn't wear glasses, and
mm-hmm.
then so I can take them off, but my eyes are kind of get to that place now where it's just getting harder to see.
Uh-huh.
It's just a little too. So I, I I could do the podcast, but I'm not comfortable because I can't see your features properly.
Gotcha. Yes.
So I put them on and I've moved lights around all the time. I've changed the
Mm-hmm.
height of my laptop because now that I'm looking down slightly, there's no reflection. When I
Right.
come up, there's no
Right.
reflection. But it's as soon as I look directly in, there's this reflection. And for the
Yep.
life of me, I've tried doing that, and I've tried coming forward. I've not yet. I've moved lights around, and I've not yet. And I say yet because I will solve it. Come up with a way of not having that light reflecting in my glasses because it must be
Yeah.
possible because people wear glasses on screen all the time.
Yes. Yes. And that's the only trick that I've found. I'm not sure if you can get a special lens where it doesn't have that reflective ability, but just by pulling the backs of the frames up higher on your head, it tips the front of the glasses down and it gets rid of a lot of that glare. And I can still see.
Oh,
So
you've just solved the
there's no
problem.
glare.
Yeah, no, it's
There's no
gone.
glare.
Yeah. See, I
So
knew I'd get a solution, but
uh,
that has literally solved it.
yes. Yeah. And you still are able to see. Now, yeah, you got to get used to it, being up. And I wear baseball caps because if I didn't, it's going to, my hair is receding more and more. So it's uncomfortable for me to do that, but I can see without them. So I just take them off.
Yeah, but that's a good point because you've just done something, and I'm gonna say two things, right? One, you've just told me the solution, and it's worked. I'm now looking, and it's like, Oh yeah, I have to lift my head up to get the reflection, right? So that
Yes.
solved it, right? But the second one is, if I allowed that to control me, I'd have stopped doing podcasts until I found a solution. Well, I've been wearing glasses for about half of this year.
Mm.
And the reason I say that to people, because often what stops you gaining any confidence or momentum is perfection. And it doesn't exist.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
one of the reasons I spoke about the complications we had just trying to sit down to have this conversation, because it was a ripple effect. Nothing was going right because it started in August and I ended up sick, right? And I'm
Hmm.
relying on courtesy and goodwill when I have to apologise for being unwell. And you can't guarantee the response, but you do know when you can't turn up to perform. And
Yes.
it never going to flow perfect every time. It's not possible. And
Right.
you just have to sometimes accept your limitations. You just have to accept
Yeah.
where you are.
Yes.
And, but instead of, well, oh, bugger, this doesn't look great. No, it doesn't. It's not perfect. It's not a studio. And going back to this is also an audio podcast as well as a video podcast. So,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
the people who will be listening to this on Spotify or Apple or Podbean, they have no idea I even wear glasses. Yeah. And the thing is, and this is going back to what I was saying about the smaller institutions like the church magazines, the local newspaper and stuff. You think no one is interested in what you've got to write or what you've got to say about your book, and it's not an interesting interview. These people rip their hair out every week, every month, trying to find something to talk about. You
Yes.
are exactly what they bloody want.
Yes. Yes. And that I'll tell you, I've been on a couple of other podcasts where we delved into this a little bit more, and the same response came back, David. People out there who write these newspapers and write the magazine articles, they need information. They're dying for that kind of stuff. If you can provide it, you're like gold to them.
Yeah, you are. I describe it as a currency.
Yes.
You are a currency for me, because if I don't have guests, I don't have a podcast. So when
Yes.
people well, I don't know, I've got anything interested to say. No. Do not judge what you think is interesting. That's
Yes.
it's not even my job. My job is to create an atmosphere where you and I can talk about something you are passionate about. Because anybody who has a passion is interesting for at least 30 minutes if you can allow them
Yeah.
to talk. If you get them talking about that
Yes.
passion, right? I'm an open book. There's a reason I asked you, where was your upbringing? Because you told me about your childhood. You told me about moving. You told me about your childhood sweetheart. You told me about your mum and dad. By the
Yep.
time we start talking about the topic, you don't care because you spent 10 minutes talking to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
You've forgotten
Exactly.
why
And
you're on the podcast.
it's very comfortable. You set a beautiful stage for
Yeah.
me to come in and really present myself and present my books. And I'll tell you, David, what we've been talking about, there's a term given to that. And a lot of folks suffer from what's called imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And that's something that you really have to internalize and say, why am I not as good as the next person?
Yeah.
And when you start making, and I'll go back to the marketing side now, when you start making these sales, it helps build that confidence.
Mm.
And when you start doing a couple of podcasts, that confidence level goes up
Yep.
further. And you go do maybe a book club, or you go and get your book into a local hometown library, and your confidence keeps going up. And that's what you need to do. And the only way to do it, and I'll bring us right back full circle, you have to say yes. You
Yeah.
have to ask.
I honestly, I try to share as much as possible with people, and here's a couple of,
Hmm.
like, again, right, there's two things I learned. So one of the things, right, just keep that flow going, is when you said to me you moved schools, one of the first things I asked was, what was the contrast between the two areas?
Yeah.
Again, you're then thinking, all you're doing is thinking about your childhood and thinking
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
differences and what you remember, what you know, and that then becomes a conversation. And
Yes.
I remember, God, you know, as soon as I said I remember, his name just disappeared into the ether. And that's another trick to pick and it's not a trick. Just be honest about what's just happened. Everyone
Yeah.
understands it. Like,
Yeah.
you just laugh because it's
Yes.
funny. I was talking to this chap,
Yes.
right? I was talking to this chap, and I asked him, like, what was school like? What was it like growing up? And it turned out he lived in this fairly small town. The school was 100 yards away. The school football field was the back of his house on one side. The other side of his house was a river, and his granddad owned the local roller disco, and he worked there in the summer. And I was just like, wow, right? He had a job there, and I was just like, you must have been gold dust, because you were the guy in charge of the roller skates at the roller disco in
Yes.
town,
Yes.
and I was like, you had no trouble picking up girls, did you? Because you and I know that one of the hardest things when you're a teenager, because he was a young lad, he was a teenager, is meeting
Hmm.
girls. But girls are going to come
Yes.
up and talk to you because they need your help. And you're just doing your
Yes.
job. And by the time you've dealt with 50 pretty girls in a weekend, they're not, the stigma's gone because it's just your job.
Right.
And he
Right.
he went somewhere in his head, and we end up having this whole laugh and this whole joke about, yeah, you're right, it was a good teenage life, you know. And it's
Oh yeah.
and it's a trick, and it's not a trick to deceive. It's understanding that people, if you have a fear, people don't want to project, people don't have imposter syndrome. And another thing I learned to do when I was having delicate subjects, right? And it's literally, it's a caveat. It's a way of me breaking the rules, right? Or don't judge me. If I don't know quite how to word something and it might be sensitive, I'll say, just give me a second. I'm trying to articulate this because I don't want it to sound clumsy. And
Yes.
at that point, I can turn and say, I think your mother's really fat. Would you agree? Right? Because I've just laid down the table. This is like, what, this is going to come out wrong, whatever way I say it.
Yep.
So this is like a
Yes.
subconscious precursor, and it's just a simple line of, yeah, give me. I'm trying to figure out how to articulate this because I don't want it to sound clumsy. And then I can
Hmm.
say the clumsiest thing I want. And I'm not trying to be an idiot. I'm not trying to. I'm just letting you know that don't take offense because it's a podcast.
Yeah.
And I've got a
Yeah.
question. And this comes back again. It's a way of saying yes, because something I want to
Yes.
ask. I want to ask you something, and I'm going to say yes, right? And
Yeah.
again, let's shout back out to those magazines, those newspapers. You've no idea how desperate they are to hear from you. You've no idea how desperate podcasters are, especially the smaller podcasters like myself. You know, our currency is we need conversation.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
worry if you're afraid of talking, you know. Because there's another one, and I never said anything because you mentioned you had a dog. That's another thing I asked. If somebody's got a dog, I was like, "Oh, you got a dog? What, well, what's your cat's name? How long have you had it? Where'd you get it from?" And then they start talking, and it's not
Yeah.
a mystery. It's not, and the only thing we need is somebody that's happy to talk. And
Yeah.
if you have a book,
Yes.
talk to me about the book. But don't worry if you don't know what you're going to say. I'll figure that out. I'll figure that out. You know, and yeah, it's good. It's people out there need that encouragement because you've written a book. It's not an easy process, but now you owe it to yourself to just take a couple
Yes.
of little baby steps, and like you say, learn about the marketing. Get yourself out there.
Right. Right. And I didn't know a lot of this in the beginning, David. My very first book, if I was to look at that And with what I know today, A, I didn't have a professional editor. I did not have a professional cover designer. I designed the cover myself. I worked with a organization to get it formatted just right for Amazon, but I didn't have an ebook for it. There's so many things that I didn't do, but you know that first book has outsold my other three books
Yeah.
because of the stories in it, because of what I'm doing to market it, because it's in libraries and people can see it. And I did all of this by asking and saying yes. And that's the two biggest things that I try to tell people in this marketing book that you need to do and you need to get comfortable with it. And guess what? The more you do it, the more comfortable you will be
Yeah.
to do it.
It's
So,
it's so difficult because you and I would it's hard for people to understand that when you and I initially started talking, there was a point where I said we will start the podcast in a minute because we just
mhm.
started talking. And we just like, hey, how's your day? Yeah, no, my day's this, my day's this. And then we just got into a conversation with no rules, no
Yeah.
expectations, just two grown men having a conversation, like we were
Yep.
sat in a bar having a beer, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and when people are like, well, how'd you do that? Because you just get used to it, you just practice it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
like you were a technician that used to come into an office and have to fix things with people and look at machines, and you have to meet strangers all the time. And I've had similar jobs. You just start with, hey, how's it going? Are you having a tough day? Are you having
Yeah.
a good day? All right.
Yep. Yep.
And
And then you got to rely a little bit on from technology. And the only reason I mentioned that because right now you just had a message come up on the screen on my side said your bandwidth was low.
oh right, yeah.
And so that's another thing that happens during these, and you don't panic. You
No.
just go right along with the flow. If something happens, we'll pick it back up. So you've got to get comfortable in that. And I tell people all the time that comes with practice.
Yeah.
You're not going to be good your first time out. And there's things still I do wrong.
Yeah.
But I learn and I rewatch the podcast and I share them with other folks. And I get comments back saying, oh, you know, that you had a glare over your right shoulder. Okay, good. I'll take care of the lighting and I'll fix that. These are things that you learn by doing and sharing and getting the
Yeah.
feedback. And that's the other thing I tell folks you can't take the feedback as criticism, you have to use it to improve.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts a whole different viewpoint on it. So I mean, you and I have been chatting here, and I've been enjoying this, and we can chat for a
Yeah.
good long time. I'm not sure how much you want to get into more of the book details, or just continue chatting because I'm having fun.
Well, yeah. This is it. I mean, I was actually going to say because we do need, because we've been talking, I think, for nearly an hour and a half, nearly, and so yeah, we do need to actually let's refocus ourselves on the books and get that out there.
Okay.
So run through the books for us.
Okay. The first two books I call them memoir history. The first one is Ilion, My Childhood, My Memories, Growing Up in a Bygone Era. The second book, again, memoir history, is My Rosemount, Minnesota Memories, Teenage Years in My Shoes. The third book takes a major turn. That's a spiritual book called Signs. The veil is thinner than we imagine, and it has, David, a ton of stories in there. Not only my own personal stories, but stories from folks who were in the Twin Towers on 9/11 and miraculously getting out while the building's collapsing down around them. A story of a gentleman who chartered a flight to take his family back home after his brother's funeral. 10 minutes into the flight, the pilot dies. He has to take over and land this plane and all the circumstances that went around that. And I mean, it was nothing short of miraculous that he was able to land that plane without even a scuff on the tire. and so many more stories like this that are in the book. So that one I describe as spiritual, and it was the type of book that kind of brought me in to write it. And it wasn't until I had, now I've had many events that happen in both mine and my wife's life, but we had one of these events happen right in front of witnesses. That at that point, that's when I said, okay, I got to start writing these stories down. So that all went into my third book. And then my fourth book, which is Marketing on a Budget, Simple Steps for New Authors. That is all about marketing tips to help new authors, uh, gain some momentum, build some confidence, and make some sales. And in that, I tell them, look, there's no coaching, there's no courses, there's no other upsells. I'm giving you all the tips and techniques inside the book that I use. I'm giving you the exact examples, the emails that I sent out, the different podcasts that I pitch, all the different sites that I visit, etc., to help them gain a foothold and start making sales for themselves in building their own brand. So those are my four books. And if you want to go into any greater detail on any one of them, we can, but that's the four. And all of them are, with exception of the fourth book, because that's with the editor. The three books are available on a lot of different retail sites, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I even went out on Walmart.com and found it out on Walmart.com. So they're available out there. And the first two books, because they have a lot of pictures in it, it was very difficult to make an ebook out of that. The third book does have an ebook with it, so it's in both paperback and ebook format. I'm thinking of this fourth book that, besides the paperback and the ebook, I may also do an audio book on that because that's pretty much all text, and that should be fairly straightforward to do an audio book on that one. So that's my four books in a nutshell. And I've got others that I'm already thinking about. I have one that I put into timeout. It was supposed to be my fourth book. I've got maybe 5 chapters written right now in it. I was going to do a total of 10, but it just was getting to me. And I said, all right, I'm going to put you in timeout for now and go on and write the marketing book. And then I will get back to that one and finish that one up.
I want to go back to something you said near the beginning.
Sure.
You retired, and your grandchildren were asking you about stories, and you said you were telling stories for a couple of years, and then you thought, what prompted the book then to write the first book? Because the stories were, you were obviously telling your grandchildren about things that happened growing up, what it was like. The So how did that, like, what was that little moment where you thought, I should write this down?
Yeah. And that goes back to a short story that I wrote. Um, they was the stories that I had, I started to write them down, and I said, I think I got a little book here. And so I wrote the book, and it's just a 80-page large text, has my stories in it, and I called it my Rosemount Christmas Memories. And that's about when I lived in Rosemount, Minnesota. So that first Christmas after I wrote the book, I told my wife, I said, you know what? I think I want to get this produced by a local publisher here and just wrap it up and give it to Caleb. He's my oldest grandson. He was the one who asked a lot of the question, and just give it to him as a final Christmas gift. And I did that, and I had other books, produced. You don't just get one book
Yeah.
produced. I wanted them produced also for the whole family. So I had those in the box by my chair. And so at the end of that day, all the presents were handed out. And I said, Caleb, come here. And I said, you've always asked Grandpa what I was like as a kid. I want you to open this up. And I handed it to him. Well, the look on his face, and then he showed, all the family members and the look on their face. That I think was the turning point that says, yeah, I'm going to take the rest of my stories and I'm going to put them into a book. and get it published. I think that was the pinnacle point right there. Just the look on their face, David, it just said it all. And I said, okay, I really enjoyed that. It meant something to me that was very deep. And I just said, okay, I want to share these stories with other folks. And when I wrote that first book with all of the stories of my hometown of Ilion, New York, and the pictures I put in, now I will tell you, I consider that my hometown that I knew and loved was destroyed.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that, urban renewal came in, and that was a government program in the late 60s and 70s. It had raised over 113 buildings, removed streets, put in this big monolith center cement block building that became a little bit of a mall, maybe 10, 12 stores in it. That mall eventually dissipated, and now it's made up of doctors' offices and clinic. But all of the quaintness of the town is gone.
Yeah.
And so I included pictures. I went to the historical society back there. I went to the library back there and gathered a lot of pictures that went along with my stories and put them into the book. I've got over 80 photographs into the book. And I think because of those two reasons, this book resonated a lot with the folks in my hometown. And in fact, the library, I published a book in April of 22. And in May of 22, the library got its first copy. In January of 23, I'm receiving an email from them that my book became the number one checked out book for all of 22 from
Oh,
the Ilion Library.
that's good. That's
So,
great.
that humbled me more, David, and meant more to me than all the sales I've had to date. That my hometown folks wanted to read my stories and think about it, and the feedback that I've gotten. That book has also garnered the most reviews on Amazon. And so I'm thinking, wow, they even thought that much to write a good review. It meant something to them, and that means something to me. So, and I didn't get that way by not asking. I didn't get that
Yeah.
in that position by saying no. So,
Well, yeah, and that's the important thing, isn't it? Is we get there because of that
yeah,
persistence, and it
yes,
doesn't always work out the way you want it to.
yes,
It's not always going to be perfect, but these things, I don't know. If it matters to you, you'll do it. And if you've gone
yeah,
to the trouble of writing a book, you should do that. You should just reach out, try different things. It's not a perfect formula for everybody, but
right.
um, there are.
And things they're changing in the industry right now. Amazon is changing its algorithms. You've got AI coming in and raising a lot of havoc. And what you just said, you really have to do. You have to try different things and see what works because everything is in a little bit of a flux right
Yeah,
now. And so you just keep trying. You just keep that persistence going, and eventually you will succeed.
I had a conversation with a friend of mine who does marketing the week, not last weekend, the weekend before. We used to do a bit of marketing together, but I kind of,
Okay.
and he was telling me about a thing called Opus Clips. He said I use it for my podcast, and I was just like, okay, I'll explore it. And when I looked at it, the only kind of package that was appropriate for me was the annual subscription. And it's just like, that's not really what I want, but it's what I need. There's no
Yeah,
the
yeah.
functions that I need that's it. I've got to pay for it. So okay, I bought the annual license. And my friend is like, yeah, you need to post like 4 or 5 reels a day from your podcast. I was like, yeah, I don't like to flood like that. Blah blah blah. And then at the weekend, I was watching some marketing expert in the UK. I've seen him on a few podcasts. I quite like what he says. I like how he scales business. And he talks about, you need to be posting at least this many things a day because it takes 11 things to be noticed. And it's like, oh, right. So I was just like, right, well, maybe I'll get back onto Opus and start posting more reels every day. And
Yep. Yep.
it's the learning curve. And I've
Yes.
been doing this for 5 years. But there's a new technology that comes out and does new things, and it posts and schedules. And lucky enough, somebody told me about it, because I didn't know about it. And will it work? I don't know. But there's no guarantee. And
Yep.
one of the things that my friend, somebody else I've seen on other podcasts is, again, because of AI, because of this and because of that, YouTube, Google, they're all changing their algorithms. And
Yes.
these algorithms never stay static.
No. No.
And you have to keep
Nope.
trying to figure out, well, not figure out, but you have to adapt to what they are doing. And,
Yes.
and
You do. And Amazon's latest algorithm's been called the A10 algorithm. The one before that was A9. So based upon that, you could assume the others was 8, 7, 6,
yeah,
5, 4, all the way down. And that just tells you these things are changing.
yeah,
And Amazon started out as a book retailer online. That's all it did. It sold books. So it has learned this market very well, and it keeps changing to keep up with it. They're even changing how it used to be if your book scored number one within just an hour, 1 hour is all it had to do, you could then state that you had the number one bestseller on Amazon. Well, now they're looking for longevity.
yeah.
How long is it? And there's other things like that that are changing. So it's hard to keep up with a lot of it. And I will tell you, you could spend a lot of time. My wife knows for sure. I spend a lot of time trying to get the word out and talk to folks. But it's what you have to do if you want to get your message out there.
Yes.
If you just think you're going to place it one time and the world's going to beat a path to your door, no, no. It could happen. And there's an author that I am aware of that he sat in a Barnes and Noble and Jonathan, and I'm trying to think of Jonathan's last name. He sat in the Barnes and Noble and doing a book signing and very few people. And this little 4-year-old girl comes up to him and started chatting. Well, the mom was videoing the whole thing. She winds up putting it out online. It went viral.
Yep.
And now he's selling thousands of books. He is getting international publications done. I mean, he's in demand for speaking, all because he decided, yeah, I'll go do that today. I'll take a few books. I may sell some. And he did. He sold a few books, but not knowing what was going to happen. And now, and he is so humble. He is so
Yeah.
humble over all this. But you have to do these things. You have to put yourself out there. Otherwise, you're not going to get noticed.
There was a guy, when I was a kid growing up, there was a bloke called Johnny. I can't remember his surname. And he used to amateur films around sort of Devon on the Exmoor. And basically he'd film wildlife. And he'd just go to markets, local events, and sell his videotapes. And homemade videotapes of him just filming wildlife in his area. Very passionate man. Very passionate man. And one day some bloke came along. He had a quick, bit of a conversation with him. And he bought a couple of videotapes. A couple of months later, it turns out this bloke was a reviewer or editor for the Times magazine, Times newspaper in the UK, which was back then probably sold 1 million copies a day, whatever. And he reviewed and loved them. He was just like, they were a bit amateurish, but the story is there, the filming is there, and the passion is there. That led to
Yes.
him then getting a TV show.
Wow.
And all of this. And it's not like his life blew up and he was suddenly driving around in Lamborghinis and riding yachts. But probably for the next decade or so, people paid him to do his passion.
Yeah. Yes. You just don't know until you get out there and
But
do
he
it
had
and where
no
it's going to lead.
idea. Yeah, he had no
Yeah.
idea that he was talking to this influential guy
Yep.
uh, who was a reviewer for a big national newspaper.
Yeah.
And you don't know who's picking up your book. You don't know who's going to listen to an episode of a podcast. You just
Yeah.
don't. You just
You,
don't know.
no, you don't. And I don't know if you know Mike Rowe, the Dirty Jobs guy.
And
He has
vague.
the TV show, The Dirty Jobs,
Yeah.
among some podcasts and things like that. Well, I've longed to get onto his show. Well, his mother is an author. She's in her 80s. She didn't get published first until in her 80s. I find my books, she sends me a photo. My books are on her nightstand. She reads them.
Wow.
And so to me, I was sitting back saying, Peggy Rowe? I mean, she's a New York Times bestseller three times in a row. I think her fourth book's coming out. And she's got my books.
Yeah.
I mean, that just means a lot to me. And, this is where the imposter syndrome kicks in again. Yeah, but my first books weren't that great on the cover
Yeah.
but it's the stories that she liked. So, that means a lot to me. But you don't know until,
You don't. You don't.
you
That's the point. You've no idea. You don't know who's listening. You don't know whose cousin has read a book and has suggested it to somebody. You have
Yes.
no idea until until it happens, and
Yeah.
there isn't a road path that you can follow for everybody other than you've got to put yourself out there so people can notice you.
Exactly. And that goes even with when I talk to folks in the chapters on podcasting in the book. I say, after a number of them, the podcast hosts will start reaching out to you because they will start to see some of other folks.
Mm.
They'll start to hear your name in their circles and they'll start reaching out to you. And that's actually happened to
Yeah.
me. And from a podcast that I was on in South Africa, he hooked me up with another person that was over in Washington State. And I was on a podcast out there. And I mean, these things happen because you're willing to say yes, you're willing to tell your story out there, and people will begin to notice and they'll get in contact with you.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. I am actually I'm conscious of time because I'll need to shoot in a
Yeah.
minute. So I'm going to
Okay.
ask my last question, which is a random
Sure.
question, not related to anything we've discussed. I want you to imagine you have a time machine. The
Mhm.
time machine, preferably, is a vehicle of your choice, like a car. What car would you have? Where would you go? And what would be playing on the radio?
Oh, that's interesting. I'll probably say the car is a Highlander, a Toyota Highlander, only because it's very roomy and I just bought one.
No,
So,
that'll do.
it's fresh on my mind. Where would I go? Oh, there's so many places. I'd want to go back to the birth of Christ
Yeah,
and be there for that. I'd love to go back to the days of the Egyptians and actually see how the pyramids and what they actually put into these pyramids.
mm.
So I would do that. I'd want to go to the signing of the Declaration of Independence and be there
Yeah.
on that day. But there's so many, many more. Um,
What would be playing on the
Boy,
radio?
what to play on the radio? Oh, there's so many different songs that come to mind.
Reel him
Oh
off.
man. Well, I mean, there's some. I'm trying to think of the John Denver songs that I'd be hearing. Um, there'd be some. The first one that came to mind, and I even hate to say this, but it has such a good rhythm and everything to it, was Highway to Hell.
Yeah,
I think AC/DC
yeah.
was playing that. And I want to try to think of the ones where, and I know as soon as we get off this
Oh, yeah, yeah.
call, David, I'll have 100 of them come up to my mind. Um, oh, there's probably some hymns that would come to mind. Uh, oh, I'm just like you drew the blank on the
Yeah, yeah,
name.
yeah.
I'm drawing a blank right now on the song. The first two things came easy. Oh,
Well,
the
you had
song.
Highway to Hell, so
Yes.
AC/DC. So, and that I think what's probably happened is you've done that thing where I learnt this in a game once, and I'll tell you when we go off air how you win this game, right? But I won't.
Okay.
I'll leave it for everybody else. So we're gonna call it a day there, but chat a little bit afterwards. So thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate
Okay.
it.
Thank you, David. I really do appreciate today. It's been a lot of fun.
And there you have it. And you won't be surprised that Kevin and I did talk for a little bit longer, and he will be coming back on the podcast hopefully next year, around February. And do check out his website, look at his books, give him a shout. And yeah, if you are an aspiring author, a podcaster, get in touch. But also listen to what we said. None of us were great to start with. None of us have got it down to being for perfection. We just do it. And that doing it is knowing that sometimes you trip up along the way. But then sometimes it's a clear path and you walk easy. There are lots of things that people don't see when you're writing a book, when you're doing a podcast, but the final package is polished. Yeah, it never gets there that way. And all of these things that you think you're doing wrong is what we do right. And you just think you're not doing it to the same standard. Trust me, and it's easy for me to say it, but trust me, your standards are the same as ours. We've messed up enough times that just don't worry about messing up. So, and on that note, as always, thank you very much for listening, for watching, for sharing, for the comments, for the support. Because without you, it doesn't exist. And wherever you're from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you very much.